I'm HarryMaguire. I'm 54. I suppose first and foremost, I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent. I live in the end of Ireland. I'm also a Republican ex-prisoner, and I'm also the director of an organisation called Community Restorative Justice Ireland, which is a conflict resolution organisation which bases its processes on restorative practice. I think I had a very balanced upbringing. I was raised within the sort of Irish traditions, Irish culture, Irish sport, Catholic by religion, and of course living in the north. Then that meant we were living in a segregated world. We went to Catholic schools exclusively. We tended to live in Catholic areas, although in the 60s we sort of broke that mould and moved to a mixed estate or a mixed area, which wasn't a very pleasant experience. And I suppose both my parents were fairly apolitical when it came to local politics. Although my father would have had Labour, he would have been a member of the Labour Party, and he would have sort of looked leftwards. We also had a tradition within the family home that some of my mother's family were from the Protestant faith, and that also gave us a different understanding of life and how things sort of worked. Well, school life was good. It was very ordinary. It wasn't. There was nothing in particular that I can sort of remember that I would have seen negative about school life and school experience. But I did say that in the 1960s we moved to an area of Belfast, in North Belfast, called Ballysillen, or Tyndale specifically. And it was really at that point that I started to know that there was major fault lines without understanding it. I remember on a number of occasions remarks being made about, say, the carrying of a hurling stick. And then, of course, as that sort of progressed, there would have been a number of occasions where both myself and my brother would have been verbally abused over our religion. And on a number of occasions we would have been stopped in the street and asked what religion were we by sort of other young boys. Sometimes that would have ended in a bit of violence, Well, I suppose for me the critical moment, and I suppose my life and my generation's lives was 1969, when I was only 10 years of age, and our world literally sort of went upside down, and from sort of carefree primary school days to British troops on the streets, and from that point our lives were consumed, and all the sort of sharp differences that were within society were magnified. And then, of course, this relationship or non-relationship with the state had completely broken down. Well, I suppose that one of the biggest things as a family for us, it was my father's place of employment was burned and looted because it was a Catholic-owned pub. I remember that very well. My father had worked in the premises for 21 years. So that was a major change within our family. I was 10, and then there was a difference. There was a difference in the street I lived. There was a different feeling came over the whole area, and your safety. You were feeling under threat, basically, and I say that any relationship or any sense of the northern state had been completely broken. was absolutely no trust in terms of how you seen the state or what the state was about. In fact, you felt hostility towards the Northern State. Well, as I say, I was 10 years of age, so I didn't understand. I didn't understand that Catholics didn't have the same employment opportunities. The Catholics didn't have the same educational opportunities. The Catholics didn't have the same access to housing and other aspects of life. So I didn't understand that, but very quickly, those issues became really in your face, and a sense of a complete sense of injustice pervaded, my community and people who were from that community. A complete sense of mistrust of the Northern State, and I suppose, and things moved very, very quickly and very rapidly. I suppose everyone's life sort of changed. It was absolutely radical change. Well, the violence was triggered because I suppose in 1968 there had been the civil rights marches, and of course civil rights was a big issue not only in Ireland of the 60s. It was happening across the Western world, and the fact that you had a community who were saying that they wanted civil rights told you that there was something wrong within the Northern State. We lived in a part of Ireland which was occupied, which was manufactured in a particular way geographically, that it would be a one-party state, that it wasn't democratic, that it was based on inequality and privilege for some, and exclusion for others. So it was as a boy, I couldn't articulate that, or I couldn't understand what that all meant. But being stopped, in 1967 and asked what religion you were, and then being punched in the face, is a very sharp sort of sense of there's something wrong. There's something wrong in our society, and then from as we moved into the 70s, I remember still in primary school, a friend of mine, his brother being shot dead outside the front of our school. I remember people being arrested. I remember people being shot and wounded. I remember people being beaten and harmed by the British Army. So it was like open warfare in the streets, and I suppose you started to become involved in that as a sense of your community's under attack, your community's under pressure, your community needs to be defended, and also a sense of excitement. There was a buzz, there was a rush about what was happening in those early days. And then, of course, as you develop and as your community develops, and as some of the organisations that were on the streets in those days, your sense of political consciousness also develops, and your reasons for becoming involved change, and then start to deepen and broaden as you start to give you start to look at the issues in the context within a political mindset, and of course then from an Irish Republican mindset, then your reasons for being involved in a struggle and an armed struggle become different. They become much more sustainable. They become much more ideological, and they have very clear sets of aims and objectives and goals. Well, I suppose my community was the influential people. I went from, say, 1969 to thinking that George Best was probably a hero, to it being the IRA guy, or the IRA person who was on the street corner with a rifle, who was exchanging fire with British soldiers, and they became my heroes. That person became my heroes, and And then from that point on, that I became sort of immersed in Republican thought, Republican activity, Republican ideology. Well, you know, when you say the other side, I never actually looked at it through sort of the other side's eyes, in the sense of the Protestant community or the Unionist community. I tend to look at it through the British, because it was the British who had responsibility, political responsibility, for what was happening in Ireland at that time. It was under the British government's watch that people were allowed to be abused because of their religion. The people were allowed to be isolated. The people were allowed to be held in a very undemocratic system, and their lives literally destroyed because of it. You know, you had glass ceilings everywhere, in terms of employment, in terms of opportunities, you know. So I very much seen it as a British thing. While I was aware of the sectarian stuff, that there was a unionist community, I suppose I tended to see the unionist community as part of that Britishness, or part of that system that was promoting division, that was promoting privilege, that was promoting the sort of the concept of the other. Well, I suppose that goes back to my upbringing. I was brought up in the sort of traditions of being Irish. I looked at the green, white, and orange as my flag. I played Gaelic sports, and when you played Gaelic sports, you were actually, at that time, you weren't allowed to play foreign games, which was like soccer and so on. I was associated with a Gaelic club, and then of course within that you had Irish dance and different types of Irish culture. And then even at school you would have a number of teachers who would, you know, instead of teaching the traditional British version of history, would have given you a very, very Irish version of history. I was aware that, you know, the 1916 rising, from an early age, I was aware that there was partition, and that wasn't good for me or my community or people from my background. Well, I became involved in republicanism from an early age. My brother was jailed in 1976. He was a first-year university student, quite a talented person in terms of academia. So it was just happening all around us. That's where it was at, and I have been associated with republicanism ever since. It was actually it was probably harder for my parents. I understood it, that it was a consequence of what he was involved with and what I was involved with. For my parents, it was a different. It was probably the end of some of their hopes and aspirations and all the normal things that any parent would want for their child. So it was quite a devastating moment for the family. I then survived an assassination attempt from the UVF, which would have been the Ulster Volunteer Force, and the family then moved from North Belfast over to West Belfast, which was a safer area in terms of the sectarian conflict, but much more intense in terms of the conflict with the British. Yeah, I think it was respected because of that. I think there was a certain respect for people who got off the fence, who became active. Even as I went through the prison system myself and coming out, you know, I'd never at any stage in my community have I felt a criminal. In fact, quite the opposite. And So a lot of support from within my community. Now, there was people who didn't support. There was people who didn't agree. There was a lot of politics around all of that. But for the ordinary person, I would say there was a certain respect or a certain understanding of what was happening and why so many, particularly young people, I suppose, would become involved in armed actions and go down that path. And I suppose equally, because there's this notion that if people become involved in armed struggles or become involved in armed action, that it's somehow mindless, that it's somehow that it doesn't have any rationale, and really that couldn't have been further from the truth. And you only have to read some of the books that have been written about the North, or look at some of the politics involved. And very clearly, there is a rationale for armed action, and most certainly within the Irish context here and the northern sense of it, there's absolutely a rationale. And then of course it's about the legitimacy of violence and all of that, and that's probably a wider debate. But the state here always used violence and legitimised the use of violence. And of course, once you do that, then it becomes a different thing. I don't think it particularly offered very much. It was just, as a young person, I would have been in terms of my activities, they would have been very much in a support mode for older people. But I suppose it was that you were part of something, that you were doing something positive, you were standing up and being counted. But it was all of that type of response, Yeah, well, there was excitement about it, but there was also excitement about putting the ball in the back of the net when you're playing a Gaelic game. There was excitement of meeting a girl. There was excitement of just normal living. I never seen the excitement as being a great dynamic, to be honest with you, in terms of being involved in anything. Because while yes, there was excitement there, there's also a lot of hard times. There was attacks. There was, you were being stopped and you were being accosted and beaten by British troops. I was only a young boy, but you were experiencing this, and there's nothing exciting about that. I think, well, I suppose my family was there, right? And my family didn't want me being involved, and that wasn't going to happen. There's many arguments in the family home over it, particularly from my mother. But no, there was, you were living in a very sort of what I would have thought was a normal enough situation in 1969, and things literally turned upside down. And when things turned upside down and priorities changed, and I lived in Tyndale, we were put out of that estate, forcibly put out of it. Your parents' priorities changed. They're firefighting in terms of trying to survive and trying to make do, and then you have this sort of madness all happening around them, So decisions were just being taken, and I was taking my decisions, and I was happy enough with that, Well, I think once I started to internalize the politics of it and understand what it was really about, and the enormity of it all, and that sense of injustice that was waged against my community, my nationality, my language, like culture. I felt it was a righteous cause, and I felt it was about my objectives, or my cause's objectives, was about bringing about equality, bringing about a just society, reuniting Ireland, extending our hand to the others and say, what we get, you will get. And understanding Irish republicanism in its historical sense, of being about Catholic, Protestant and dissenter. And that in the founding fathers of Irish republicanism were very much rooted within the Protestant and Presbyterian faiths. So there was a richness to that. You know, I felt it was right. I felt there was something good. It was about positive political change. It was ideology in the sense of injustice. I would say I probably lost my religion somewhere along the journey. You asked earlier on about, I suppose, one of the big influences. And at that time, you know, I was 10 years of age starting out in this journey. The Catholic Church would have been fairly omnipresent in everything that we've done, from the cradle to the grave. And as the troubles started and the troubles took hold, the church disappeared. The church didn't want to be caught in the contradictions that I was caught in, and didn't want to be caught in conflict that the people were caught in. So the church would have probably been a major influence, but it bowed out. And as they done that, I felt also a sense of injustice, because, you know, when I was younger, you know, I was told and taught to stand up for your religion and be, you know, proud of what you are and who you are. I was taught to stand up to bullies. I was taught to stand up for what was right, and I felt that the church didn't live by that philosophy, and really absented itself, you know. So along the way, somewhere my religion became much less important to me, and my political ideology and so on is probably the core in terms of values and how I see life.